Deep Trouble by Lesley Thompson. Chapter 1. West Palm Beach Marina.
We're free for 5 days. It's wonderful,
said Greg happily.
Yes, but don't forget about the exam next week,
said Jessica.
I must study. I don't know anything.
All the friends looked at Jessica, and then they looked down at their feet. It was true. 5 days' vacation was wonderful, but nobody wanted to study for all that time.
Well, I'm not going to study. I'm going to do something different,
said Matt suddenly. His friends looked at him.
I'm not going to sit here at college for 5 days. What's wrong with everybody? Let's have a good time.
Matt's right,
said Amy.
Let's do something different, something exciting.
So, what do you want to do, Amy? Go scuba diving in the Bahamas or something?
asked Greg.
Well, why not?
Amy answered quickly.
It's more interesting than staying here. Okay,
laughed Jessica.
You two can go off and do exciting things. I'm going to my room.
One by one, the friends got up and left. The two friends sat and looked out of the window. They could see more college buildings and more students. Matt spoke first.
Well, Amy, what shall we do? Shall we drive down to West Palm Beach?
Okay, let's do that.
Two hours later, the two friends walked slowly through the town and down to the ocean. It was late, and there were not many people on the streets. They could hear the ocean, and they could feel the warm air on their faces. They walked for a long time without speaking, and then they arrived at the marina. There were a lot of big white boats there. They moved slowly up and down on the dark water. The two friends walked past the boats. Suddenly, Matt stopped next to one of the biggest boats.
Hey, Amy, this is my boat. Let's get on it. We can go to any country we want.
Oh, Matt, don't be stupid. You don't have a boat. I know that.
Okay, but let's have a look at it. Perhaps we can take it to, I don't know, South America, or Europe, or Africa.
Matt jumped onto the deck of the big boat, and a minute later, Amy jumped after him. They laughed and walked up and down the deck in the dark. They liked looking at all the things on that beautiful white boat.
These people are rich,
said Amy.
Perhaps they're famous, too.
Shh,
said Matt suddenly.
Listen, I can hear something.
The two friends said nothing. They could hear voices in the night air, and they were very close. They got down on the deck behind some oxygen tanks at the front of the boat. The voices came closer, and the friends felt afraid. Then, some people got on the back of the boat. They could hear different men's voices, and then the voice of a woman.
Let's get off before they find us,
Said Matt quietly into Amy's ear.
But they're going to see us.
Said Amy.
It doesn't matter. Run fast and jump off. Quick.
But before the two friends could move, something happened. Matt could see the people on the boat now, and they were very close. There were 3 men and a woman, and they were all angry. Amy and Matt watched. Then one of the men took out a gun. But before he could do anything, the woman took out her gun and shot him. With a cry, the man's body went down into the water.
Why did you do that, Sharon?
Cried one of the men angrily.
We needed Luis for the dive.
Be quiet, Troy.
Answered the woman.
We couldn't trust him. You know that. We can think about the dive later.
Come on, let's go.
Said Troy.
We don't want the police to get here and begin running all over the boat.
They began to move. The second man ran to the front of the boat, but he did not see Matt and Amy behind the oxygen tanks. Troy and Sharon went into the cabin at the back of the boat.
Matt,
Said Amy.
I'm scared. What's happening? Who are these people?
I don't know, but they're dangerous. Let's get out of here.
Just then, the boat began to move under their feet. Slowly, it moved away from the boats next to it in the marina. Amy looked at Matt. His mouth was open, and his eyes were scared. And Amy felt scared too. They could not get off the boat. Nobody could help them now. In her room at Florida Atlantic College, Jessica felt tired. It was late, and she did not want to study. She made a cup of coffee and took it into a big room downstairs. The students usually met to talk there. A minute later, Greg came into the room. He smiled at her.
I can't study, Jess. Do you have that problem too?
Yes, Matt and Amy were right. We can't study all the time. Did they go out?
Yes, I heard Matt's car at about 10 o'clock.
They looked at the clock and said nothing. It was after 1 o'clock in the morning. Suddenly, Jessica spoke.
Well, perhaps they found something exciting to do out there.
She said, and she laughed. Chapter 2. Deep Trouble. The boat moved through the marina, and out into the open ocean. Amy spoke first.
Oh, help! Where are we going? What are we going to do?
Let's speak to these people.
Said Matt.
We can say sorry and leave. They don't want us here. We're close to the marina. Perhaps they can go back and leave us there.
They aren't going to take us back, Matt. What happened to that man? They shot him. These people are bad. We don't want them to shoot us, too.
Well, what can we do, Amy? We can't stay here. They're going to find us soon.
I know. Let's jump off and swim back to the marina. It isn't far.
Said Amy.
In that dark water? The water's deep here, and it's dangerous. I'm going to call the police and get help.
Matt took out his cell phone, but before he could call anybody, the phone rang.
Oh no, somebody's calling me.
Quickly, stop that noise.
But before Matt could stop it, a man's voice came out of the night.
Hey, what's that noise?
They heard his feet on the deck. Quickly, he came closer. Now he stood over them. It was Troy. He shouted to Sharon and the second man.
Hey, guys. I don't like to say this, but we have a problem. Look here.
His hand moved quickly. He took Matt's phone and threw it into the water. In seconds, Sharon arrived. She had her gun in her hand.
What are you two doing here? Come on. Talk.
She said angrily.
Nothing.
Said Amy.
We wanted to see the boat. That's all.
Oh, yes? That's a good story. Let's go. Move.
They pushed Amy and Matt into the cabin at the front of the boat. The second man was there. He was the driver of the boat.
Look, Brad,
said the woman.
these two were on the boat all the time. They saw everything.
No,
said Matt quickly.
no, we didn't see a thing. Look, please, can we go? We aren't going to talk. We want to go home. That's all.
You're in deep trouble, kids.
The woman said, and she looked at the two men.
They saw everything. I'm going to shoot them.
Sharon's right.
Said Troy.
We can't trust them.
Brad looked at the scared kids.
Wait a minute. Perhaps these two can help us.
He looked at Matt.
Hey, you, kid, can you swim?
Yes, I can. And Amy, too. We're good swimmers. We can swim back to the marina, no problem.
To the marina? You are good swimmers. Can you dive too?
Brad asked.
Dive? Yes, but why?
Matt began to feel afraid. What did this man want from him? Brad spoke to Sharon and Troy.
Look, we don't have Luis with us now, and he was our diver. This kid can help us to bring up the drugs. His girlfriend isn't going to do anything stupid when he's under the water.
Troy spoke.
I don't like it. I can dive, and I don't need help from some kids.
Listen, you're not a good diver, Troy. Luis was the man for that, and he's not here.
It's true, Troy.
Said the woman.
The kid can do it. You can go down with him to help him.
She laughed.
Okay, then.
Said Troy, and he looked at Sharon angrily.
Let's put them in the small cabin for now. When we get to the Bahamas, they can come out again. Come on, you two. Move.
Sharon and Troy took Amy and Matt along the deck to the cabin at the back of the boat. They pushed them in, and Sharon put the gun next to Matt's head.
Be careful,
She said.
Luis was stupid. He told the police about us, and so he died. Do something stupid, and that can happen to you, too.
Sharon and Troy left the cabin and closed the door. Matt and Amy heard the key in the door, then the noise of feet on the deck, and then nothing. Matt waited a minute before he spoke.
What are we going to do, Amy? These people are drug traffickers.
Yes, and you're going to help them to find their drugs.
But why are the drugs under the ocean in the Bahamas?
Why is that important? These people want to kill us. We must get away from them.
No, Amy, let's sit here quietly for now. They need me for the dive. We have time to think of something before then.
Okay.
Said Amy, but she was very scared. Chapter 3. Diving for Their Lives. The next day, Jessica got up late and went downstairs to have breakfast. She saw her friends Greg and Tom at one of the tables, and she sat down next to them.
Hi. Where is everybody?
You're late, Jess.
Said Greg.
Everybody's in their rooms now, and they're all studying.
Well, not all of them. Some are playing tennis.
Laughed Tom.
See you later.
What about Amy and Matt?
Asked Jessica.
Perhaps they went to visit Matt's dad in Jacksonville.
Said Greg.
Matt wanted to see him.
Or perhaps they're somewhere in the Bahamas, swimming and sunbathing.
Said Jessica, and she smiled.
Wonderful. I would like to be there now.
said Greg.
Well, let's go after the exams,
said Jessica. Matt and Amy slept very badly in the little cabin. There was not much air, and they were hungry and thirsty. In the morning, Amy looked at her watch. It was 9 o'clock.
How far is it to the Bahamas, Matt? How many hours?
She asked.
I don't know. Not far.
Half an hour later, Troy came with some water, but he did not bring any food. He didn't speak to them, and they were afraid to ask questions. Some time later, the boat stopped. The cabin door opened for the second time, and Sharon came in with some bread and some cold meat. Matt and Amy ate hungrily. Sharon said nothing, but watched them carefully. Then she spoke to Matt.
That's right, kid. Eat. You need to feel good for the dive.
Am I going to dive for drugs?
That's right. There are some packages down there. 20 of them. In these packages, there are some very good drugs, and they're going to make us very rich. Oh, yes, they're going to make me and my friends a lot of money.
Sharon thought of all the money and smiled.
Why are they under the ocean?
Asked Matt.
They were on a boat from the south. The police came onto the boat, so our friends threw the packages into the water. But we know where they are, and you're going to get them for us,
said Sharon.
What about me? What am I going to do?
Asked Amy.
You kids ask a lot of questions,
said Sharon angrily.
You, girl, are going on deck with me and Brad. We're going to have a nice family day out on the boat. Mom, Dad, and daughter. You're going to do nice things. Drink Coke, listen to music, and sunbathe. Your boyfriend, no, your brother, is going to go scuba diving with his Uncle Troy. He doesn't like sunbathing. Do you understand?
Yes,
said Amy.
Right. Now get on deck. And remember, I'm watching you. Do you hear?
Sharon put her hand on the gun in her pocket and pushed Amy and Matt out of the door. On deck, the sun was high in the sky, and it was hot. Far away, they could see a white beach and some trees. The ocean was a beautiful blue color. Troy spoke to Matt.
Right, kid. I'm going into the water with you, but you are going to dive. When you find something, bring it to me. Understand?
Yes.
Troy and Matt got ready for the dive. Matt put on a wetsuit, the wetsuit of the dead man, Luis. Matt felt strange. He put the oxygen tank on his back. It felt heavy out of the water. Soon, Troy and Matt were ready. Sharon and Brad sat on the deck with Amy between them. Sharon wore dark glasses and had a camera in her hand.
Amy is going to be right here with us all the time,
said Sharon.
Remember that, Matt.
Troy went into the water first. Then Matt went in. The water was not cold, and for a minute, Matt felt free and happy. But Troy was next to him, and Sharon watched him from the boat. Matt thought about Amy and Sharon's gun.
I'm diving for our lives,
He thought, and went down to look for the packages. From the deck, Amy thought about Matt. He was down for a long time and did not come up again. Was he okay?
Smile, Amy,
said Sharon, and she took a photograph.
You're on vacation.
Have a drink.
Said Brad. He gave Amy a glass of Coke. Amy could not take her eyes off the water. Where was Matt? Was there a problem? At that moment, she saw his head, but only for seconds. He gave something to Troy and then went down under the water again. Chapter 4. Smile, you're on vacation. Matt went down again. How many packages did Troy have now? 8? 9? Matt felt tired and scared. Some of the things under the ocean were beautiful. There were fish of many different colors. But he only wanted to find the packages. Most of them were between the rocks, and they weren't easy to find. Again and again, he went down and took the packages up to Troy. Amy, Sharon, and Brad watched from the deck.
How many are there?
Matt asked.
Is that it?
2 more and that's it.
Said Troy. At that moment, the 3 people on deck heard a noise. They could see a boat very close to them. When it began to come closer, Sharon said quietly,
It's the Coast Guard. We're on vacation, remember. Smile and look friendly.
When she spoke, Sharon put her hand on Amy's arm and pushed down. Amy wanted to cry out, but she said nothing. The Coast Guard boat came very close. One of the men on it shouted,
Hi! Good morning! Is everything okay?
Wonderful! Thanks!
shouted Sharon. Amy sat up suddenly and began to wave.
Help!
She began, but Brad pushed her arm down. Smiling, he spoke to her angrily.
Don't be stupid, Amy. You don't want something to happen to your boyfriend.
Amy looked down at the ocean and said nothing. Matt was under the water and Troy swam up and down slowly, looking at the beautiful fish. The Coast Guard boat began to move away.
Bye! Have a nice day!
One of the officers shouted. Sharon and Brad smiled and waved. Amy sat and watched the little boat. It moved far away. The last 2 packages were difficult to find. Matt looked for them for a long time. Up on deck, Amy watched the water, looking for Matt's head and the yellow oxygen tank. Matt found the last packages and took them up. He was very tired. On deck, there were now 20 packages. Everybody stood and looked at them.
Are they okay?
Asked Troy.
Do they have water in them?
They're okay.
Said Sharon.
And they're going to make us very rich. Thanks for your help, kid.
Matt looked down at the drugs.
Can we go now?
He asked. Sharon laughed.
Are you kidding?
She said.
You want to go home to Florida? But then you can tell all your college friends about us. And we don't want that. No, my friend, you're going to die. And your girlfriend, too.
She looked at Amy.
Wait a minute, Sharon.
Said Brad.
Let's think. How are we going to take the drugs into the States? We can't do it. Maybe the police have Luis's body. They're going to ask a lot of questions about his friends. So, maybe the kids can help us with this, too.
Brad,
Said Troy angrily.
I don't understand you. Why are you always interested in these kids? It's very strange. We have the drugs. Let's shoot them and forget about them. We can't trust them. They're going to speak to the police.
Yes.
Said Sharon.
Why are Matt and Amy going to take the drugs into the States for us? They're going to give them to the police.
But we know all about their college friends.
Said Brad.
Amy told me all about Greg and Jessica. Oh, and you have a little sister. Is that right, Matt? We know a lot about them. They don't want something bad to happen to their friends or their families.
Amy began to cry. Matt was cold now after the dive, and his face was white. Sharon looked at them.
Okay, maybe they can help us. Let's take them to Nassau. We can get passports for them there and put them on the plane. Then maybe we can stay on the boat and wait. When the drugs are in the States, we can kill the kids. Then they can't talk.
That's a stupid idea.
Said Troy.
Kill the kids now, and there's no problem.
No, Troy. Think for once. We need the drugs and the money. We can't go back to the States now because the police are looking for us. The kids are scared, and they're going to do everything we tell them. Is that right?
Sharon looked first at Matt and then at Amy. They did not answer. What could they say? Brad took out his cell phone.
It's time to phone JT in Nassau.
He said.
He can bring a car to the boat and then take us to the hotel.
We're going to need a big car for all the drugs.
Laughed Sharon.
Yes, and for these two.
Said Troy, and he looked at Matt and Amy darkly. Chapter 5. Open your bag, please. The marina at Nassau was hot and sunny. When they left the boat, Sharon walked behind Amy, and Troy walked next to Matt.
There's JT,
said Sharon. A big black car waited not far from the boat. The driver wore a dark blue suit and dark glasses.
Get in. Why are there 5 of you?
He asked.
A good question,
said Troy angrily. They got into the car. Brad sat in the front next to JT. Sharon and Troy went in the back with Amy and Matt. Matt was between Amy and the window. He could see the streets and houses of Nassau on the road to the hotel. There was a carnival that day, and the streets were full of people. The car stopped 3 or 4 times because there were people in front of them in the road. JT was angry.
Move, you guys!
He shouted every time. Once when they stopped, Matt spoke quietly to Amy.
Next time we stop, let's open the door and jump out,
he said. But Troy understood.
Forget it, kid.
He said.
You can't open the door. JT isn't stupid.
Soon they arrived at the hotel. Sharon took Matt and Amy to their room.
Sit down and don't open your mouths,
she said. She went to the television.
Let's watch TV while we're waiting.
5 minutes later, JT, Brad, and Troy came into the room. JT had a camera in his hand.
We need photos of these 2 for their passports,
he said.
Smile.
He took some photographs, first of Amy and then of Matt.
Okay, I'm going now. Wait here and don't go out. You can ask for something to eat in the room.
When are you going to bring the passports?
Asked Troy.
Tonight, and the plane tickets too. The kids can go tomorrow.
He left. For some time, the only noise in the room came from the television.
Police in West Palm Beach knew the man well. He was Luis Cortez, a drug trafficker. They are now looking for his killers. They were on a boat and they left the marina soon after.
They're talking about us. Let's get out of here,
shouted Troy.
Take it easy.
Said Brad.
They didn't give any names.
Maybe they know our names, but they're not saying.
Said Sharon.
Tomorrow, when the kids are on the plane, let's go back to the boat and take it somewhere.
Okay,
Said Brad.
but for now, we wait here.
The next morning, Amy and Matt stood in the hotel room ready to go to the airport. They had false passports and plane tickets to the United States. The packages of drugs were in 2 bags under some clothes and books. JT and Sharon drove them to the airport. Before they went over to the police with their passports, Sharon spoke to them for the last time.
We have a man on the plane. Don't forget that. And someone is going to meet you when you arrive. Remember your friends and your families, and be careful. Goodbye. Have a nice day.
70 minutes later, Amy and Matt were back in the United States. They showed their passports and walked through into customs. It was then that everything began to go wrong,
Open your bag, please.
said the customs officer to Amy. He looked in the bag under the clothes and books.
Just a minute. What's this under here?
He opened one of the packages a little,
Did you know about this?
Yes,
said Amy.
but I can explain. They aren't our drugs. You see,
Open your bag, too.
Said the officer to Matt.
Let me see. You and your girlfriend have a problem here.
No, listen, please. You see, we went to the marina at West Palm Beach to see the boats, and...
Okay. Forget the stories. Come with me. You can explain this to the airport police. You're in big trouble, kids.
That night at Florida Atlantic College, Jessica, Greg, and their friends watched television with open mouths. They could not believe it. Amy and Matt were in prison for drug trafficking.
it isn't true. Amy and Matt aren't drug traffickers. They need our help.
Said Jessica.
Yes, but what can we do?
Said Greg.
Hey, but look at all those drugs.
Said Tom.
How did they get into their bags?
I don't know.
Said Jessica.
But Amy and Matt didn't put them there. I know that.
Chapter 6. Oh no, it's Brad. After their arrest, Amy and Matt explained everything to the police, but nobody believed their story. That night, they were in different rooms of the prison. Amy was scared, and she couldn't sleep.
What's going to happen to us?
She thought.
What's Sharon going to do when she finds out? What's going to happen to our friends? What are my mom and dad going to say?
The next morning, a policeman took Amy to a sunny room with big windows. Matt was there. He was happy to see Amy, but he was worried.
Okay, stay here.
Said the policeman, and he left.
I don't understand.
Said Matt.
Why are we here?
Yes, it's strange. Maybe our families are coming to visit us.
But Sharon and the others said...
Don't talk about it, Matt. I don't want to think about those people.
Okay, Amy, but we did nothing wrong. The police don't believe that. So what can we say to them? We don't want to sleep here for a second night.
No, I want to sleep for a week, but not here.
Just then, they heard a noise. The door opened and a man came into the room. He came closer and he smiled.
Oh, no,
Said Amy.
it's Brad.
In her room at college, Jessica wanted to study, but it was not easy. Again and again, she thought of Matt and Amy and their problems. Her cell phone rang.
Hello?
Jessica answered.
Hello, is this Jessica Lawson?
Yes?
Hi, Jessica. I write for the Daily News. How do you feel about the arrest of your two friends?
What? How did you get my number?
Tell me, Jessica, were Matt and Amy drug traffickers, or did someone put the drugs in their bags?
Look, I don't want to talk to you. Goodbye.
Angrily, Jessica threw the phone down. A minute later, it rang again.
Hello?
Good morning, Jessica. This is Chuck White of Talk Magazine. What can you tell me about Matt and Amy? Are they very good friends, or...
Jessica threw the phone down again and sat down on her bed. When the phone rang for the third time, she did not answer it. Back in the sunny room, Matt and Amy looked at Brad.
What are you doing here?
Asked Matt.
It's okay, Matt. Hi, Amy.
Brad sat down and looked at the two scared friends.
I'm an undercover agent.
He said.
I don't believe you. You're a drug trafficker.
Said Amy.
No, I'm not. I work for the police.
I don't understand.
Said Matt.
Why didn't you help us? Why did you do all those things?
Yes, I'm sorry about all that. But I worked for months with the drug traffickers in different countries. There were more people than Sharon and Troy, and they did some very bad things. They trusted me. I wanted to wait and arrest them all with the drugs. But then you came and things changed. I'm sorry about the dive, Matt, but they wanted to kill you, and it was the only thing to do.
But we took all those drugs on the plane.
Cried Amy.
That was your idea, too.
Yes, Amy, it was dangerous, and I'm sorry, but it was the only answer. I couldn't do anything to help you then. I went back to the boat and waited. After your arrest, I talked to the police. Before you could be free again, there were a number of arrests of important people in the Bahamas and here in the States. There were arrests in other countries too. The police are very happy. A lot of very dangerous people are in prison now.
Yes, and we're in prison too,
said Matt.
What about our families and our friends? What do they think of us now?
Take it easy,
smiled Brad.
You and Amy are free to go now. And soon, everybody is going to know the true story about your little vacation.
The next day, Amy and Matt's story was in the newspaper.
Students free after drug arrest. Students of Florida Atlantic College, Matt Kresge and Amy Collins, 18, had an exciting vacation this week. They got on a boat at West Palm Beach, and minutes later, they were in deep trouble. It was a drug trafficker's boat, and soon after Matt and Amy arrived, the traffickers got on the boat, shot a man, and left for the Bahamas. When they found Matt and Amy on their boat, they wanted to shoot them. But Matt is a good swimmer and diver, and the drug traffickers needed him. The young man dived and brought up 20 packages of drugs from the ocean. Amy watched Matt from on deck. When the Coast Guard came close to the boat, Amy shouted for help, but the traffickers stopped her. Later, the traffickers took Amy and Matt to a hotel in Nassau, and the next day, the two young friends were on a plane back to the States. In their bags, they had the 20 packages of dangerous drugs. Customs found the packages and made an arrest at once. The young people were in prison when an undercover agent from the boat called the police and explained the true story. Matt and Amy are now free to go back to their studies at college.
I knew it! They didn't do it!
Jessica waved the newspaper in the air.
Look, everybody! They're free!
The students ran up to Jessica. Everybody wanted to see the newspaper. Jessica and her friends were excited and happy.
The newspaper doesn't tell us much,
said Greg.
Why were they on the boat at West Palm Beach? Why did Matt help get the drugs from the ocean?
You can ask them now,
said Tom.
They're coming through the door.
Matt and Amy walked slowly into the room.
Well, hello! Are you guys okay?
asked Jessica.
Yes,
said Amy.
we're okay. It's good to be back here,
Sit down and tell us all about it,
said Tom.
Were you scared?
Why did you get on the boat?
Tell us about the dive, Matt.
The students began to ask more and more questions. Matt put his hands in the air.
Hey, Guys, stop a minute, okay? We need to call our families and then get some sleep. We can tell you all about it later.
Yes,
said Amy.
I don't want to think about it now.
Well, you had an exciting time, Amy,
said Jessica.
Exciting?
Answered Amy.
I like things here better. Boring is good. Hey, Matt, where are you going?
I'm going to my room.
Said Matt, smiling.
I'm going to study. We have an exam tomorrow, remember?